Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. So we finished the 4 different characteristics that have opposites, and there is a 5th one which is not to do with tajweed, so we won't go through that, and we'll go straight to the next part, which is the characteristics. There are 8 characteristics with no opposites. The first being whistling, and we've gone through most of these characteristics before. When explaining the letters. So I'm going to go and whiz through these, except for one of them, which is qalqala. And qalqala I'll explain in a bit more detail. But for now, in this video, we'll just skip through most of the characteristics that don't have opposites. So whistling is just to do with zay, sin, and sad. The sharpness of that sound, that is whistling. And that comes from the sound passing through a very tight passage. So it's highly pressurized and it goes through the hole in the teeth there, the gap in the teeth. Okay, that is whistling. For zay, sin, and sad. Then we have qalqala, as we mentioned, and we're going to go through that in more detail, and it has more detail here. Okay. Then we have drifting. So drifting. Okay, we have ease first. Ease is right there, if you can see it. Ease is the 3rd one. Okay, now ease is a characteristic which is for waw and ya. We mentioned this before, that waw and ya they have an easy flow through the articulation point, and so they are ascribed the characteristic of ease. Okay, aw, ay, right? They're very easy through the articulation. The flow of air is very easy, so they're called ease letters, and they have the characteristic of ease. Now, the 4th quality is drifting, which we mentioned before, and that is for what? Lam and ra. And we said that for lam, the air travels to the side of the tongue, okay, and goes between it, right? And for ra, which we'll look at, ra is exactly the opposite. It travels through the middle, goes through, it's blocked by the side of the tip, and goes into the middle. Okay, through that hole, the gap, which is made so that the ra does not do any more repetitions than one, so it goes through the middle. Now, here is a picture of the comparison between the two. Okay, lam and ra. Then we have repetition. That is what we call the light trilling of the tongue, meaning that it's got one trill only of the tongue for ra. So this characteristic is specific for ra, and that is due to the tightness of the articulation point. That's a very important point because it's not due to putting more air in. We're not pushing more pressure, but the tongue is in a shape which makes it tight, and that tightness creates that pressure on the tongue, which makes it flip. Okay, ra, 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 okay, ra, 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 okay. That is a very important distinction. To get a trilling of the tongue, don't put more air pressure into it. Okay, your trill comes from tightness of articulation. Okay. Then obviously be careful not to exaggerate repetition, leading to more than one ra, which is if you do more than one roll. Okay, if you do more than one roll and it goes like this, that's forbidden. That's not ra. Okay. Then we have spreading, which is for sheen. That's when the sound spreads over the tongue, and it spreads and hits the inner plates of the top and lower teeth. Okay, so if you can see that, the air spreads and it hits the teeth and also goes out the mouth. Okay. That is not to say that you try and close your teeth and clench your teeth. Don't do this. And don't do what you do for sin. Sin is different. Sin is where you actually clench and make a gap that's very small to make the sound come out. But this is different to sheen. Sheen is different. Sheen, you do not do any of that. Sheen, leave your teeth as they are, and naturally the air will come to the teeth and hit it, and naturally come out of the mouth. Okay, good. Then we have expansion, which is istitala, which we mentioned for dad when we were looking at the articulation of dad. That is just the way that the tongue moves forward. Okay? Moves forward due to the air pushing it forward. Okay, until the tongue reaches the same place as lam, the base of the upper two incisors. Then we have ghunna as a characteristic itself, and that is a characteristic of noon and mim, whether they have haraka or sakin, right, or clear or merged or concealed, i.e. if they have ikhfa or idhar, right, or idgham, those rules. As we said before when we were looking at the articulation points, we said that ghunna is both an articulation and a characteristic. That's because its length differs in accordance to where it is, right? For example, if it's meme with fatha, ma, the length on the meme itself is very short. If it's got sukoon, it's a bit longer, tiny bit. If it's merged, it's very long. Okay, so that's why it's called a characteristic, because of the different length of the ghunna when you have it in different places. Okay.